Good morning, everyone. I am truly so happy to be here with you all today for this really momentous event. I'm Mary Walker. I'm the Regional Administrator for EPA Region 4. We work with the 8 states of the Southeast. Before I begin, for the press who are watching on the live stream, and if you have not yet RSVP'd, but you would like to ask a question, please, and the questions will be at the end, please email press@epa.gov so that you can receive the call-in information. So it is really my great pleasure to welcome so many distinguished guests to this morning's event. First, we have so many members of the Florida delegation. We have Representative Mario DIAZ-BALART, Representative Gus Bilirakis, Representative Dan Webster, Representative John Rutherford, Representative Michael WALTZ, and Representative Greg Stubbe. Thank you all so much for being here with us. We also are honored to have the chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, Mary NEUMAYR, the Principal Deputy to the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Ryan Fisher, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Water and Science for Department of Interior, AUBREY Bettencourt, and many members of our senior EPA leadership, notably Administrator Andrew Wheeler and Assistant Administrator Dave Ross. And finally, but certainly not least, we have Secretary Noah Valenstein with Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So thank you all so much for being here and more broadly for all of your support and partnership through this really important undertaking. So as Regional Administrator, I think probably the most important thing I do and one of my highest priorities is making sure that we work effectively with our state partners as we carry out our common mission. And so I think that today's events really underscore the effectiveness of our partnership and the ongoing work that we have undertaken to ensure that we continue to advance this partnership together. And so now I am truly pleased to introduce our EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler. As you all know, Administrator Wheeler has dedicated his career to advancing sound environmental policies. He began his career during the Bush administration in our Office of Pollution Prevention and Toxics. He later worked as a principal in private consulting and served as the director of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee staff. Let's see. And now it is my pleasure to turn it to you, sir.
Thank you, Mary. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to welcome all the members of Congress for being here. To get so many members of Congress here today, it shows the importance of today's event. Especially want to thank Florida Secretary of Environment Protection, Noah Valenstein, for being here today. Thank you, Noah, for being here. As you know, this is very important for the state of Florida, and I want to thank you for all your hard work in making this happen. And to the other members of the federal family for being here. This is a joint effort across the board, and I want to thank you all as well. Clearly, the attendance of so many dignitaries shows that this is a great day for Florida, for EPA, for the federal partners, and for this country. Following a rigorous and timely review process, EPA has approved Florida's request for assumption of the Clean Water Act Section 404 program. This action allows Florida to effectively evaluate and issue permits under the Clean Water Act to support the health of Florida's waters, residents, and economy. Receiving permission to administer this program is a high bar for states to meet. But what we have done today is provide a roadmap for other states to follow. And we've already received interest from other states who want to assume the program. Only 2 states prior to today, Michigan and New Jersey, currently have this authority. And those were granted back in 1984 and 1994. And it's high time that we grant more. When Congress created this program, they intended for states to assume the authority, much like what the states have done under Section 402. But over the years, the federal government has thrown so many hurdles in front of the states that no one has even tried to request the program. What we have accomplished here today, by working with 4 other agencies at the federal level, 3 state agencies, and 8 tribal governments, is provide the roadmap or framework that can be duplicated by other states. By taking over this permit program, Florida will be able to integrate its dredging and fill permitting with their traditional water quality and monitoring programs. Florida has a wealth of aquatic resources, and they care about their resources at least as much, and I would say probably more so, than the federal government. There's no reason why they shouldn't be running their own program. To get to this place, EPA determined that Florida's program was as stringent as current federal requirements, and EPA did so within the statutorily mandated 120-day period. EPA reviewed Florida's proposal, sought input from other federal agencies, and hosted 2 virtual public hearings. The review also included the development of a comprehensive biological evaluation of more than 200 endangered species throughout Florida. An EPA consulted with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, resulting in a biological opinion and incidental take statement regarding Florida's program. Finally, Florida entered into an agreement. EPA entered into agreement with the state of Florida and others under the National Historic Preservation Act to ensure that historic properties and cultural resources are protected. In short, this has been an incredible joint effort. Back in October when I was in Tampa, I mentioned that Florida was a great example to the rest of the country of how states, industry, and the federal government can work together. Earlier in the year, EPA was able to move the last of the state of Florida's air quality non-attainment areas into attainment for EPA's SOx standards. This means that the entire state of Florida, all 21 million Floridians, now meet all 6 federal air quality standards, making it the most populous state in the country to achieve this status. I expect Florida to continue the same strides in water quality as it takes more responsibility for its water regulations. Supporters of Florida's assumption remarked how successful the state's environmental resource program had been in permitting activities while improving environmental protections. I will add that EPA's Office of Water and Region 4 and the staff in both of those offices deserve a lot of credit in getting us to where we are today. Mary Walker and Dave Ross and their staff have really delivered on this project. I also greatly appreciate our close working relationship with our friends at the Department of Interior, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the state of Florida. Again, this is a great day for the state of Florida. It shows just over the last year what the state has been able to achieve and continue to achieve, both on water quality and air quality. And they truly are an example to the rest of the country. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Florida Secretary Wallenstein. Mr. Secretary, if you'd like to take the podium. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Administrator. And first, thank you to the whole team of federal partners that have made this possible and have worked over the last 4 years with our agency, as well as the support of our federal delegation. And just as the Administrator mentioned his amazing staff in Region 4, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Deputy Secretary, John Truitt, and the tremendous staff we have at the agency. Really, the motivation from this came from a group of talented environmental scientists and permitters at our agency who live among the resources at Florida, who care passionately about it, who've dedicated their life to protecting those resources, and who understandably want to be in the driver's seat to protect them. And in so many other Clean Water Act programs like Forward to others, they're set up for delegation to the state for just that reason, to allow passionate environmental advocates within the state to run those programs for the protection of resources there. I'm also here on behalf of Governor DeSantis, who's really stood as a champion for the environment in the state of Florida. The governor was not even elected to office 48 hours before he issued an executive order with broad sweeping consequences to reorganize the Department of Environmental Protection, to set a goal for $2.5 billion in funding for water quality in Florida over 4 years, and really to set the tone of how important the environment is to Florida. Our environment is our economy, it's our way of life, it's why you move to Florida. If you go outside right now into the freezing temperature, I think it's a great advertisement for the state of Florida and our beaches and our resources. but it's why we want to be in the driver's seat. And the governor has stood as a tremendous example of that. Everglades restoration, the world's largest wetland restoration, happens right here in Florida. It's a World Heritage Site. It's a beacon of pride for our state of Florida, and it's an amazing undertaking that we have gone in. And I think it demonstrates our commitment. I think it also demonstrates just how important our environment is to all Floridians. We have so many of our congressional delegation here today, and I know every one of them has been involved in Everglades restoration. You know, Congressman WALTZ, Congressman Rutherford from Northeast Florida, far away from Everglades restoration, some might think. Congressman Billigrakis, Congressman Stubbe, far away to some degree. Congressman DIAZ-BALART, in the heart of it, was such a tremendous legacy, and Congressman Webster at the headwaters of Everglades. You see the entire state of Florida represented in our congressional delegation and just as passionate about Everglades restoration. And to me, that's such a great example of why we as a state want to always be in the driver's seat when our resources are on the line. You don't have a member of our congressional delegation that says, Everglades restoration, that's somewhere down in South Florida, it doesn't matter to me. No, they are passionate about that resource. We have so many other wetlands in Florida, North Florida, again, closer to Congressman Rutherford and WALTZ. You have the perch wetlands that feed into the most amazing series of freshwater springs around the world that, again, are also an icon and an attraction of Florida. You similarly have wetlands feeding into the dune lakes of our Great Panhandle, which are second to none. I mean, some of the most amazing resources we can see. And again, those rivers flowing into seagrass beds of Tampa Bay and Sarasota and down into Fort Myers are just a world attraction and something we cherish so much. And so again, that is our impetus for wanting to be in the driver's seat. It's the motivation that the public servants at the department take to heart every day. And I'll mention, this is what we view as the beginning of a partnership with our federal colleagues. You look at 402, which is a delegated program, also under the Clean Water Act, which we have administered for decades now. Our partnership has grown through that. We have to operate this program just as stringently as our federal partners would, and we honestly want it to get better as we go, and that means that we'll constantly have communications to all our stakeholders and federal partners holding us accountable, but also, and I'll end with this, we think one of the most important things about having states lead the way is that we are right there with the resource. We will identify problems, and we will immediately, if we see something happening to our resource, be able to say, we need to change the Clean Water Act to actually protect this resource better. We need additional resources. We need to work with our federal partners in a new way. And we know we have that partnership because y'all have demonstrated it today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary Valenstein. It is now my great pleasure to welcome to the podium Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, representing Florida's 25th Congressional District.
Morning, folks. Thank you, Regional Administrator Walker. Administrator Wheeler, I will tell you that you have made an amazing impact for Florida. But I'm going to focus, since we do have so many colleagues from other parts of the state, I'm going to focus a little bit about South Florida. I don't recall of an administrator who has left such a positive impact on South Florida as you, sir. And your impact is going to be felt for decades to come. And Mr. Secretary, good to see you, sir. I know how hard you have worked on this as well, as long as you've been in this process. I want to recognize as already we've heard about the number of colleagues from the congressional delegation that are here. I want to recognize them, their leadership, their efforts. And as the administrator said, and again, I'm going to be talking mostly about South Florida because we have folks from other parts of the state. But when you look at this congressional delegation, I don't care if it's an issue of importance to South Florida, North Florida, Central Florida, anywhere in Florida, the unity and the passion from this delegation is frankly amazing, and it's wonderful to see. I want to focus a little bit on Everglades, what this means for Everglades. Folks, what we are witnessing today is a huge deal. This is a huge milestone. Let's not minimize how important this is. I don't have to tell you all that Everglades is, I think, one of the greatest national treasures and one of the world's treasures. And it's not only an ecological treasure, but it's also the drinking water source, right, for 8 million Floridians. But now with Florida taking over the 404 permitting process, restoration projects to, again, protect the Everglades, to restore the Everglades, can move in much more efficiently, quicker than ever before. Mr. Wheeler, you talked about how Floridians care as much about the environment. I hate to argue with that, but I am. I'm going to disagree with you. Nobody cares more about Florida, and nobody loves Florida more than Floridians. And now, this puts Floridians, talented, qualified Floridians, in the driver's seat to make this process so much more efficient, to make it quicker, to make sure that we continue to protect the environment. We do it in a way that puts Floridians in the driver's seat. Leaders in Florida will be the ones making these decisions, obviously making sure that they adhere to all federal laws and regulations as well. So I just can't minimize the importance of this. I thought that it couldn't get any better, because every time I see you, you're usually bringing a check to South Florida. But I will tell you, as important as those checks, big checks, that we work together for you to bring down to Florida, I think this is potentially one of the biggest things to happen in recent memory. Danny Webster and I, Congressman Webster and I, who are, we both served in the state legislature 2 centuries ago, it seems. We were talking about how this is a battle that all of us have been trying to get done. This is an issue that we've all been trying to get done forever. Again, to benefit Florida and Floridians and our environment. And now it's become a reality. As I said at the beginning, this is a really big deal. This is a really big step. This is a wonderful step to preserving the environment, to protecting the environment, and to do so in a much more efficient way. So to all of you who have made this possible, thank you for your leadership, and to the members of the Florida delegation who have been fighting these battles from day one, thank you for your perseverance. Again, together, this is a huge milestone from Florida. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman DIAZ-BALART. It is now a pleasure to welcome to the microphone and the podium Congressman Gus Bilirakis from Florida's 12th.
Well, Mario's a hard act to follow, that's for sure. Thank you very much. Today, again, I'm honored to be here as Florida joins Michigan and New Jersey, the administrator said this, as the only states that have been granted approval to administer the CWA Section 404 program, the first state in 25 years. And again, I applaud everyone who made the historic approval happen to specifically Administrator Wheeler, you've been outstanding and appreciate everything you've done. Thanks for coming to the Tampa Bay area and doing such a great job for the entire United States. Secretary Bernhardt, Secretary Noah Valenstein, Chair Mary NEUMAYR, and of course Administrator Mary Walker. This decision today will help streamline the permitting process for Florida businesses and private landowners, reducing the duplicativeness and the processing time. And again, it's really a milestone, and it's a credit to, this is federalism at work as far as I'm concerned. I want to credit the administration, but also the leaders in the state of Florida. And as Mario said, Dan and Mario served in the legislature, and we've been working towards this goal for a very long time. I also want to commend Governor Bush while I was in the legislature, doing a fantastic job protecting the environment. I'm the co-chair of the Travel and Tourism Caucus. So I know how important, of course, tourism is the #1 industry in the state of Florida, and it's suffering right now, but it will come back. But we want a pristine environment to work and play, and bring down some of the residents, at least part-time, to the state of Florida. I'm so proud, again, of the leadership. And again, Governor DeSantis has done an outstanding job. He's made this a priority. Florida Speaker Chris Sprouse, good friend of mine, and also Wilton Simpson, really, they care about Florida's environment and the entire state of Florida, even though they're located, they represent my part of Florida, the Tampa Bay area. And also I want to thank Noah, who's really doing a great job for us. Florida has a proven track record of environmental protection through its existing state programs. The incorporation of the Section 404 program would allow Florida communities to move forward on key infrastructure improvements, such as Administrator, we're finally moving forward after 20 years with the Ridge Road project, which is so very important. It's an evacuation route to the east part of Pasco County. And again, I appreciate all your efforts on that behalf, and the President's executive order as well. That definitely helped. This is very personal, as I said to my constituents. The Anclote River Dredge project in Tarpon Springs. Florida will have a truly integral impact. Again, the Anclote River Dredge project is moving forward because of this administration and of course the cooperation from the state of Florida. It's business development and coastal safety. So I appreciate everyone here. I commend all the hard work that went into this historic decision. I look forward to working with the EPA and Florida DEP to help address the environmental needs and concerns of the entire state of Florida. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Bilirakis. It is now a great pleasure to welcome to the podium Congressman Daniel Webster, who represents Florida's 11th Congressional District.
Thank you so much. Good to be here today. As been said, it's a great day. I wanted to cheer when you were talking about the fact that it was happening. Just an awesome thing. I know back when Ronald Reagan first started talking about moving things back to the states, a lot of us who were in the legislature at the time, been talked about before, that it was a dream. And now it's coming true. So this is a great day for Florida, and everyone who cares about protecting the environment and protecting our clean water and for streamlining government is all a part of this fantastic program. Florida has a strong track record of protecting the environment. Floridians are, and all these legislators being here and members of Congress showing their support for, not just for the project, but for Florida's environment. That's why they're here, and it's really awesome to see all of them here. Thank you for sharing our belief. So you're at the top, we're down in the receiving end, and yet you have responded in a fantastic way, and we're very appreciative of that. Throughout my time in politics, I've strived to be a person that wants to reduce duplication, and in a lot of ways, we've got departments that have a lot of duplication. About 85% of the current state and federal regulations are duplicative, and this is going to bring that down some, and that's a great thing. I thought about my own district. I have 5 counties, and one of those counties is called Lake County, and the reason it's called Lake County is because there's over 1,000 lakes in Lake County. And it's, I've always said, Florida is basically a wetland. Not all of it, but just about all of it, and in one way or another could be classified as a wetland. So us taking over this 404 program, and I think it'll be in good hands. We have a very sophisticated, not only water management districts, but also the regulatory arm of DEP is filled with scientists and others who are fully capable of running it. So thanks to the leadership of the DEP Secretary, Governor DeSantis, state legislators, and others, even local stakeholders, all were a part of equipping and preparing for this permitting process. And it's going to be, I think, proved out. It's an awesome move. It's going to be a model for other states, not only in this area, but in other areas of government. So from Everglades restoration to infrastructure projects to all kinds of other things, sustaining those projects on wetlands and endangered species, and then also protecting taxpayer dollars. All of that are all beneficiaries of what happens today. And we're excited to see the signing. Thanks a lot for letting me come and share in this dream that many of us had, and we're thankful for it happening this day.
Thank you, Congressman Webster. It is now a pleasure to welcome to the podium Congressman John Rutherford, representing Florida's 4th.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's great to see you again. And you as well, Administrator Wheeler. I really just want to say thank you and congratulations. Secretary Valenstein, you guys have done an amazing job for the citizens of Florida in preserving our environment. Listen, as a Northeast Florida representative, I have 3 coastal counties that I represent. I have the beautiful St. Johns River that I represent, and all of the many tributaries and estuaries that go along with that. This is, as my colleague Mario DIAZ-BALART said earlier, this is huge. And I cannot thank you all enough, because this is going to save time, it's going to save money, and it's going to save our environment. So thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman Rutherford. It is now a great pleasure to welcome to the podium Congressman Michael WALTZ, representing Florida's 6th District.
Well, thank you. Well, Administrator Wheeler, Secretary Valenstein, I think this EPA, that your DEP and your team have done more for Florida's environment in the last several years than anything I've experienced and anything I'm aware of. And you should be really proud of that. Just taking a step back, we've worked together on Indian River Lagoon. We've worked together on South Florida's Clean Water Task Force, on harmful algae blooms as they tend to try to migrate from south to north. Of course, the Everglades, of course, the clean air provisions that you've put in place. I just think it just really demonstrates the commitment from here, the commitment of your team, that we can do both. Florida is growing tremendously, as we know, but it's not a zero sum. We can protect our environment, because in Florida, that's not just a feel-good thing. I mean, all of these representatives know we all know, that is critical to our way of life. It's critical to our economy. I'm a native Floridian, one of those rare breeds, and it's just a beautiful, tremendous state. We can do both, and we can do both smartly. So just thank you for your approach. Thank you for trusting us and trusting our very capable state legislatures to take care of our state. And as Representative Bilirakis said, this is federalism. Michigan has different concerns in the Great Lakes region than we do, or New Jersey or Louisiana in their bayous, and we can go down the list. So the laws are important, but implementing them smartly, I think, is just as important. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, as thrilled as we are with this, that we still have work to do on the Clean Water State Revolving Fund in particular. I appreciate your open-mindedness of you and your team. We made some important steps. This is for everyone else's edification. This is, The grant program for clean water infrastructure comes down from the federal government to the states, and they can then do below market loans out to municipalities. The formula for where those monies go and what states they go to haven't been updated since the 80s. We've obviously grown tremendously. Population shifts around the country. It needs to be updated. It's left Florida number 3 in terms of needs, and at the bottom in terms of the per capita dollars that it receives. So that is something that I'll work with my colleagues to continue to push, and look forward to working with you, Mr. Secretary, and you and your team here at EPA. Thank you so much. Congratulations on getting this done. That's a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Waltz. I'd now like to welcome to the podium Congressman Greg Steube, representing Florida's 17th District.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you. You almost have all of Florida covered. We're just missing a member from the Panhandle, and you'd have the whole state. I have Southwest Florida. I've got coastline in Sarasota and Charlotte County. Go into Okeechobee County, and I have Lake Okeechobee. So environmental concerns are at the height of my importance to the issues in my district. So I want to say thank you, Administrator Wheeler. Thank you, Administrator Walker. Thank you, Secretary Valenstein. This is such an important thing for the state of Florida. I spent 8 years in the state legislature, and one of the biggest challenges and one of the things that we tried to do in my 8 years in the legislature was repeal redundant bureaucracy, regulations, and rules that inhibited the state from being the success that Florida is. And this does just that. In my last term in the Florida Senate, we appropriated $2 billion in water resources and water reclamation and water issues in south of Lake Okeechobee and into the watershed in the Kissimmee River Valley. Those are huge projects, and we faced challenges getting approval through the feds just by the time that it takes for that process to go through. So now that Florida can take control of a lot of this, cut some of that red tape, do the things that Florida does best, and protect our waterways, protect our natural resources, I'm just honored to be a part of it, honored to be here with you today. Thank all of you for the work that you've done to make this happen. All Floridians should be very happy today in the water quality that we're going to have for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Steube. Now it is really an honor and a privilege for me to introduce and welcome to the podium Chairman Mary NEUMAYR from the White House Council on Environmental Quality.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Administrator Wheeler, for inviting me to participate in this event. I also want to thank Assistant Administrator Ross, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Ryan Fisher, and Secretary Valenstein for your team's dedication and work. And thank you to all the members of Congress here today for your support, which paved the way for Florida to assume administration of the Clean Water Act Section 404 program. As we all know, safe, clean, and reliable water supplies are critical to America's quality of life. Water drives our national economy, protects public health, provides food for our citizens, generates power, supports wildlife and plant species, provides recreational opportunities, and is essential for shipping and trading goods. President Trump has made it a priority of his administration to pursue a balanced approach to water policy and to protect our environment and meet the needs of the American people. In October, President Trump signed Executive Order 13956, which is titled Modernizing America's Water Resource Management and Water Infrastructure. This executive order formally established an interagency water subcabinet to streamline the federal government's approach to managing America's water resources and work to upgrade our nation's water infrastructure, safeguard public health, and create jobs. However, even before this executive order was signed, the federal agencies included in the water subcabinet were already hard at work, improving the management of our nation's most complex and complicated water resources and systems, including in Florida. 1 year ago, members of the Water Subcabinet came together with the state of Florida to discuss the Clean Water Act Section 404 program. Despite the complexity of this undertaking, the agencies were able to effectively and efficiently coordinate federal efforts with those of state agencies to ensure that Florida's water program met the standards and established under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act and the implementing regulations. These principles of interagency cooperation and better management of the environmental review process are key hallmarks of the Trump administration. Today's historic announcement is a testament to what can be accomplished through efficient and effective coordination across all levels of government. This agreement also highlights the Trump administration's commitment to empowering state leaders. Thank you and congratulations to the state of Florida, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of the Interior, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on this achievement.
Thank you, Chairman Neumayr. It is now a great honor to welcome to the podium Ryan Fisher, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. Ryan.
Hey, thanks, Mary. I appreciate it. I'm here on behalf of my boss, R.D. James. He's the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. Our office oversees the budget and policy of the Corps of Engineers Civil Works mission. That includes what we're here for today, the implementation of the Clean Water Act, Section 404. And this starts with, the whole process starts with what Secretary Wallenstein noted earlier. You got some wetland scientists in Florida that say, hey, we can do this. This is what we do. We can run this program. The second step is figuring out, hey, which waters are assumable under the federal government here. So that's where the Army steps in, right? The Corps of Engineers sits down with Florida DEP and they try to determine that, what waters are assumable. And my boss signed a memo 2 years ago now that essentially outlined that from his perspective. It agreed with the findings of the EPA subcommittee, right? The National Advisory Council for Environmental Policy and Technology. Rivers and Harbors Act, Section 10, waters, federal government. And then we sit down with Florida DEP and say, okay, these adjacent wetlands, let's figure out a boundary line here of what's assumable and what isn't. And that's what we did, and it was excellent work by Florida DEP, and our Jacksonville district, Colonel Kelly in Florida did a great work on that, and we're very appreciative of it. And I guess I'd speak a little bit to some of the other states in our union, right? If this can be done in Florida with diverse aquatic resources and everything that goes into the Everglades and moving water south down there, if we can figure this out in Florida, we can certainly figure it out in other states. So if there are other states out there that are interested in owning control of that Section 404 program and making those permitting decisions, we can certainly, the Army can certainly work with you to get that done. This is great for Florida. Floridians now have the same and greater protections that the Clean Water Act provides, but they have the added benefit of having permitted and infrastructure decisions being made one step closer to their government at the state level, and that's a big deal. That's how government should work. So thank you for being here today, Mary. Thank you to you. Thank you to Secretary Wallenstein, and a special thanks to Drew Kelly, Colonel Drew Kelly in Florida. Administrator Wheeler, you've been great working with your office on this and other issues, as well as Dave Ross. Thank you to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. It is now a pleasure to welcome to the podium Aubrey Bettencourt, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Water and Science with the Department of the Interior.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you to the Administrator for this opportunity to be here today. Secretary Wallenstein, good to see you. Members of the delegation and distinguished guests, really thank you so much for the opportunity to represent the Department of the Interior and Secretary Bernhardt and the incredible team at Interior that had the privilege of collaborating in this incredible way on this momentous occasion as well. Today's action is a significant milestone in cooperative federalism, of this successful partnership between our state and our federal government to effectively and successfully promote and protect environmental and economic prosperity. Mary, you mentioned the executive order on modernizing water resource management, which brings together the 6 departments of government with the lion's share of jurisdiction in the water space to effectively collaborate and reduce impediments to create a modernized water system, modernizing our water infrastructure and modernizing the way we do that. And part of that is this relationship. So this really is an incredible demonstration of that. It also tasked us with specifically looking at Florida and the restoration of the Everglades. And so we've had the privilege of working and visiting your beautiful state and developing this great partnership with you as well. active federal coordination through the administration's water subcabinet is really what ensured a robust environmental review and that active collaboration within the agencies at the Department of the Interior, within the other agencies and federal departments, as well as with the state. And that includes, our friends at EPA, our friends at the Army Corps, and multiple others through this process. I especially want to highlight and thank the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Interior Solicitor's Office as well for their careful and extremely thoughtful work. Incredible partnership. Director Skipwith is with us today from Fish and Wildlife Service, your regional team, and their ability to always focus on working with their partners in the region and keeping the customer and keeping the goal of protecting Florida at the focus was really incredible to watch. An incredible team down there. I really want to thank them and highlight that. On behalf of the department, I commend Administrator Wheeler and your incredible Office of Water, all the way down to the region as well. Mary, your team has been fantastic to work with, really rock stars, and their effort to lead in this has been wonderful to work with. So thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you, Aubrey. And now I would love to welcome to the podium the Director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Director Aurelia Skipwith.
Good morning, everyone. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be here because this really is a celebration. So thank you so much, Administrator Wheeler, for your leadership, and also want to thank all of the federal agencies. We have Army Corps of Engineers, CEQ. We have Interior, everyone who worked there. And I also want to highlight our partnership that we have with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, with Florida DOT, with Florida DEP. And this really is about what President Trump has been showing us, that you can have development as well as conservation at the same time. So when we were looking at making sure that we were complying with ESA, the endangered species, making sure that we can protect our natural resources, but then on the other end, making sure that we're using science, making sure that we're operating within the law to make development happen. And so truly, for all the partners to come together to make this happen is truly a day to be able to celebrate. And thankful for all the teams and their work for making this happen. So thank you again. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I look forward, because Florida has really been a leader, that you guys are setting the framework for other states to be able to do the same thing. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that states have the power to have the development and still be able to work with the government. So thank you again.
Thank you, Director Skipwith. Now it is really a pleasure to welcome to the podium our EPA leadership, our Assistant Administrator for our EPA's Office of Water, Dave Ross, without whose support and leadership on this issue today would not be possible. So, Dave.
Well, thanks, Mary. So 6 years ago, Governor Meade nominated me to represent the state of Wyoming on the Assumable Waters Subcommittee of the National Advisory Council for Environmental Policy and Technology. Ryan mentioned it earlier. Sounds exciting. It actually, standing here today, looking back, it was. The purpose of that advisory committee was to take a look at why only 2 states, Michigan and New Jersey, had taken the 404 program. And our job was to take a look at impediments and make recommendations for how to kick down those impediments and pave the way for other states to take the program. At the same time, the Attorney General for Wyoming asked me to lead litigation against the federal government, my current agency, about the 2015 Clean Water Rule. The states had become concerned that the federal government had lost its way a bit in respecting the carefully crafted balance that Congress provided in the Clean Water Act between respecting the rights and responsibilities of states to manage their own resources and the need for strong, robust federal oversight. And so there's a careful balance that Congress provided, and our predecessors lost their way a bit. Wyoming wasn't the only state. Eventually there were about more than 30 states representing more than 80% of the land and water resources of this country who joined that litigation. At the time, I was really focused on the law. You know, the balance between federal and state government, the constitutional, statutory underpinnings of the issues that we were grappling with. But over time, I gained some additional perspective. And working for the state of Wyoming, and then for the state of Wisconsin, I learned and I witnessed the passion that the folks who work in the states have for their environment. They know the resources best. They certainly know it better than people 1,000 miles away inside the Beltway here in DC. So that passion is what I brought, the perspective I brought from Wyoming and Wisconsin, I brought to this job. So in this particular job, it's been absolutely amazing. It's a bucket list job. You know, I was tasked with administrator's leadership to rewrite the definition of the waters of the United States, to try to get back to that balance, get this agency back to it, you know, more back to its statutory structure. And we've done that. We've passed the Navigable Water Protection Rule earlier this year, and we're really pleased and excited with how it's been implemented throughout the country. I was also able to work with Ryan and Mr. James in 2018 to provide clarity to the states as to which waters they can assume and which waters the federal government, Ryan mentioned it, Rivers and Harbors Act waters mostly, are retained by the federal government in a permitting process. I was able to work with the Department of Interior and the great leadership at the Fish and Wildlife Service to really grapple with the difficult questions about how the Endangered Species Act and the liability protections it provides can both be managed and then flow through to state-issued permits. Really complicated questions that took some deep thought. And so thank you for your leadership in the Department of Interior on that. We were able to work with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation and the chair to take a look at and make sure that we comply with the procedural mandates of the National Historic Preservation Act. So all of that effort and more has gone into today. But most importantly, it's the relationship, Noah, that we have with the state of Florida. Throughout this time, I was able to spend quite a bit of time with you, and you confirmed for me what I learned in Wyoming and Wisconsin. It's that passion for the resource. It's the people who live on the land are most connected to it. And so it was a confirmation of what I learned and what I brought to my job here at the agency. And so thank you to your people for really developing a great application for us. Mary, to Janine, Leif, Matt, the list goes on down in the Region 4, great job. To the folks here at EPA headquarters, Jess, John, Mindy, Kathy, Mike, I mean, it's a massive list of people, thank you, I hope you're watching. So we are very confident that the state of Florida will run this program as well or better than the federal government, 100% confident. But I think I'll end with, most importantly, Noah, we trust you to run that program. We trust that you will protect your resources for both now and future generations. So thank you for working with us. Thank you all for coming today. And I really appreciate the work that's gone into it. So Mary, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Dave. I now think it's time for us to sign the document. And so if our leadership and our congressional leadership and our distinguished guests could join us, we'll sign our document.
Yeah, let's get the members of Congress behind the... Right?
Thank you.
Oh, thank y'all. This is exciting for all of us. This is our partners. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
This is definitely a team effort.
This truly. So I suspect that you can tell from just the list of noteworthy folks that we've had with us today and the leadership across our federal agencies what a tremendous partnership this has been. So now, besides just being incredibly excited, and wanting to sort of second Dave's thanks to our staff, because truly, between Florida DEP and EPA Region 4, Office of Water, and Office of General Counsel, we have had so many incredibly dedicated professionals working on this, all of whom we will enumerate by name when I'm not standing in front of a big camera. Thank you all. Now, we are so happy to answer questions from the press, and our operator will now instruct reporters who are calling in on how to ask your questions.
Thank you. And as a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Once again, that's star 1 on your telephone keypad.
If any of the members of Congress like to state it, if they like to answer any of the questions. Do we have our first question?
Your first question is from the line of Zach Sampson of Tampa Bay. Sir, your line is open.
Thank you. Hope everybody can hear me. This is Zach Sampson from the Tampa Bay Times. The first question I have is just, what is the timeline moving forward for when Florida will take over these duties? What will the transition look like?
This decision is final as of now, as of today, upon signature, and it will be effective when it's published in the Federal Register, which we expect to be hopefully very shortly. Noah, would you add on transition?
Yeah, sure. We've been, obviously, as we've been going through this process, Zach, already been working to make sure our staff is trained up and ready to take over the program. Obviously, we'll be waiting for this action to be reflected in the Federal Register. As soon as that occurs, we will begin taking over and issuing Section 404 permits within the state of Florida. And we've already had great coordination with Army Corps of Engineers for the last months leading up to that to make sure we're ready to go.
Thank you for that question. Do we have another question?
Your next question is from the line of Amy Williams from News Press. Your line is now open.
Go ahead with your question. Amy, if you can hear me, go ahead with your question.
I'm sorry, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. My question is about the concerns of the Miccosukee and Seminole tribes who have expressed that this happens without consultation with the tribes. How are their interests in federal land going to be addressed, and what kind of dialogue will be happening with them?
We worked with, I believe it was 10 federal tribes in Florida. Eight. We consulted with 8 federal tribes in Florida as part of this process. They are on board with this, and the state will be working with them, and their rights are included in the review. And I'll turn it over to Dave Ross if you'd like to say something specific on the tribal issue.
Thank you, Administrator. Yeah, so a couple of things. So Florida had done an amazing job working with the tribes, and they had entered into an operating agreement on how to deal with the protection of cultural resources and whether or not it's historic grave sites or culturally significant sites as part of their permitting program. On top of that, we have, as an agency, EPA, consulted under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, both with tribes in the state and with tribes that had some historic interests in the state. And we've entered into a programmatic agreement with the state, the Advisory Council, and the State Historic Preservation Officer on how EPA will continue to manage its relationship and its oversight responsibilities. So, you know, there is a lot of work that will happen in the permitting program going forward that will ensure that tribal interests are protected. We understand that there's a continuing interest for the tribes to stay engaged, and EPA has committed to continue to meet with them, including starting next month, to ensure implementation of the programmatic agreement.
Sure.
Thank you, Dave. This is Noah Valenstein, Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection. I would also mention sort of what I said in our comments was we have certainly heard from the tribe during the Section 106 process, you know, the interest to have continued dialogue. And one of the most important things about a delegated program is that partnership doesn't end. Conversations with stakeholders don't end. These are living documents and a relationship that we have to maintain in order to have good permitting. And so we're committed as a state to making sure that we have good relationships both with tribal entities, stakeholders, permittees, and our federal partners to make sure that we have the best permitting program we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another question?
Your next question is from the line of Bobby Calvin of Associated Press. Sir, your line is now open.
Yeah, hi. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Great. This is a question for the Secretary, and it's a basic one. I'm wondering if you can explain, Secretary, why is it necessary to remove the federal government from the scrutiny that environmentalists say is needed for these projects on wetlands, and what immediate projects? I mean, are there projects that are immediately online to go ahead with this shift in authority?
Actually, before the Secretary answers, if I could just say, when Congress created this program, they envisioned the states taking over the 404 program. So this is not just a question of why does the state believe that they should get rid of federal authority, and we still are. We're still working with the state, and we will still make sure that the program is operating under the law. But this is exactly what Congress envisioned. It's just what was in practice for the last 30 years was a number of federal hurdles that prevented states from taking over the program that Congress wanted them to take over. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the Secretary.
Thank you, Administrator. Yeah, that would be my first comment, is that the federal government isn't removed from the program. Just like other delegated programs we operate, again, looking at the Clean Water Act, the Section 402 program, we have delegated to the state. The federal government is right there with us through the whole program. We have constant communication with Region 4 and the EPA, doing quality control and quality assessment for our programs. We have annual reviews. We are held accountable to the federal law. At the end of the day, any delegated program we operate as a state has its roots in that federal law. That federal law is our bedrock. It's the protection for the environment, and it doesn't change unless the President and Congress act on it. And so when we're operating that, the federal government is absolutely still involved. Again, our interest in having this program is we are passionate about our resources in the state of Florida, and whenever we can have our team of scientists and permitters issue the permit and drive be in the driver's seat, that's what we want to do. It's out of interest in our resources wanting to be in the driver's seat. But it certainly doesn't remove our federal oversight. It certainly doesn't change the underpinning protections in law in the Clean Water Act. But we're excited about being able to have our own local expertise and passion. Again, many of the congressional delegation mentioned Everglades restoration projects. Things like getting the necessary permitting for the EAA reservoir, a critical project in the state of Florida for Everglades restoration. Being able to have a team with a sense of urgency to know this is one of our #1 projects, and we want to make sure that we're putting everything in to get that permitting correct, but getting it through as quickly as possible is something we're looking forward to. Thank you.
Do we have another question? I believe this will be our last question.
Yes, sir. Your last question is from the line of Greg Allen of NPR. Sir, your line is now open.
Hi. This is really directed at Secretary Ballantyne. One of the important things that we've seen from the federal oversight is this extensive comment and hearing process that we've all become used to, that's given local communities a real voice in a lot of these projects. And also, it's more than just developers and economic interests involved. It's you hear from the public interest. How are you going to replace that? I mean, how many staff are you adding? What kind of process will you now add to replace that extensive comment and process of providing public input?
Sure, I think that's one of the great parts about delegated programs to the state. First, the size of our staff dwarfs that the federal government has to operate these similar programs. We've got more than 200 staff members specifically for wetland permitting programs. That is within the 4,000 plus staff that we have as an agency. Our office is set up, especially our regulatory office, with offices throughout the state of Florida, again, with dedicated individuals who are committed to protecting the environment, who live in the communities where those permits are being issued. And so we have a very open and transparent process, whether you're the permitter, whether you're a stakeholder who's interested, whether you're simply a mother and father moving to the area, have heard about a permit and want to learn more. I think we have one of the most transparent, accessible structures for folks to become involved in environmental regulatory decisions. I would argue just because we are a state, we're local to, we're closer to those local questions and set up in a better manner than the federal government, something we take great pride in. We want our environmental decisions to be driven by input from locals. Again, this past year, under the governor's leadership, we passed Senate Bill 712, one of the most broad sweeping environmental regulatory efforts we've seen in years, increased fines across the board for our environmental programs in the state of Florida by at least 50%, many of them 100%, put in new requirements for wastewater, septic, stormwater, as well as agriculture. That came from local citizens being able to be involved and have conversations. And again, when we can have our environmental programs at a local level like this, we think it creates that feedback loop of allowing more folks to be involved, problems to be identified, challenges for protecting the environment to be identified, and then us as a state to be able to step in and fix that.
So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, Noah, thank you for being here. This is truly a partnership between the state of Florida and the US EPA. I want to thank our federal partners for being here today and joining in this celebration, the members of Congress who are here today, and I want to especially thank Dave's team here at headquarters in the Water Office and Mary's team in Region 4 for all of their hard work and the amount of time and effort this went into getting this completed. And again, this is a roadmap guideline for other states to follow, and I strongly encourage other states to take advantage of this opportunity and move forward with their own applications to the EPA to assume the authority under 404 that Congress intended for the states to assume. Thank you all for being here today. And that concludes our program.